constituents, and to the best of my opinion, quite frankly, to make sure it was a bill that was righteous according to God's word. First principle for me. But I'll tell you the truth, it's kind of new right now. We don't do earmarks. The Republican, we did away with earmarks because of the corruption that we have seen for decades in Washington. The amount of spending on projects that are just designed about being bought. I will not be bought. And now, so I'm very happy that we did away with earmarks. We don't have a lot of rebuttal time. I just have to say the whole Syria thing, I promise you I'll get back to this question. You know the difference between 18 months ago and now? The president actually gave us a plan. 18 months ago, he wanted authority and money and did not give us a plan. Did not tell us what he was going to do, how he was going to do it. Now, is that responsible? Should I have voted for that if he didn't? If he just wanted the money and the authority, but didn't give us a plan of what he was going to do? I'm very thankful to the president. Most recently, he gave us a plan. And in fact, he's scheduled to come back and brief us and let us know how he's going to vet these foreign fighters. In terms of the government shutdown, and I know Careth, it's important to all of us. And Careth is really upset about it. I'm upset about it. But if you're upset about it, you should be running against Harry Reid, because when you look at it, during those 16 days, we voted 23 times to open the government fully funded. 5 of those times were unanimous, all Republicans and all Democrats. One of those times was to go to conference, which is a process in Washington. When you disagree, you appoint small committees, Republicans, Democrats, House, Senate, you work out the differences. You know how many times Harry Reid let the Senate vote 16 days? It's an easy answer, 0. And so I have problems with it. Washington is broken, and I can take you to the office where it was broken. It's on the Senate side. It's Harry Reid, the majority leader of the Senate. In terms of suing the president, a lot's been made of that, but frankly, that's our checks and balances. The first, Article 1 of the Constitution, legislative branch, Article 2 is executive branch, Article 3 is judicial branch. 1 and 2, we got problems right now. We feel that under Article 2, this executive branch has been stepping outside the lines of the law and the Constitution, and it's taking powers that the Constitution only gives responsibility to the legislative branch to legislate. And so we're looking for a referee. And it sounds terrible when you say you're going to sue, but that's what you're doing. You're asking the judicial branch under Article 3 to make a determination of has the executive branch overstepped the grounds of the Constitution and stepped on the powers and authority of the legislative branch. In terms of 300,000 Pennsylvanians that have health insurance, they may have it. I don't think they're going to, most of them are not going to use it. Many of those now, they get great premiums of $300, co-pays are $6,000.
We're going to move now to a question on energy policy. Are there any acts of the EPA, DEP, or DER that you think have gone too far that you would vote to repeal? Why or why not?
Well, we have no authority over the state, nor should we, so that kind of rules out the Department of Environmental Protection and DCNR. Yes, in terms on a national level, I'll tell you what I work very hard on in terms of energy. And we're the 5th District of Pennsylvania. We actually invented the drilling industry for the world. One of my offices is here in Titusville. It's a kind of a short hike to drink well, first oil well anywhere in the world, 1859. We dug coal out of our counties to fuel the Industrial Revolution. We had the first non-defense non-nuclear reactor anywhere in the country, which is at Penn State. So energy, we're all about energy here. The EPA, one of my goals is to keep the EPA out of Pennsylvania. The EPA does not have the capacity or the ability to come in and regulate natural gas production. It does have authority over injection wells. That's a whole different issue. That's not production. And I've been doing, and I watch closely what they're doing there. They have a role to play. The state gave it to them. But in terms of energy production, if the EPA was involved in natural gas, we would never be producing natural gas, because there are over 30 states that have natural gas plays in our country, and the geology is different in each and every one of them. And they don't have the expertise, nor do they have the staffing in order to do that. And so I have tremendous concerns, because there is what I call government creep. Clearly, by law, the state of Pennsylvania has responsibility for the production of natural gas. I happen to believe that, third parties tell me, those who look at state agencies that regulate natural gas, by and large, Pennsylvania is one of the better regulated states for natural gas. They just get high rates by third parties. And that's my observation as well. I work with secretaries that are Democrats. John Hanger is a friend of mine. I got to know Secretary Hanger when he was Secretary of DCNR. Judge Crancer, I worked with him very closely, and most recently, the most recent gentleman who just resigned. And I look forward to working with the replacement because it's important when it comes to energy that we do it right. And we do it as good stewards of the environment. I've been involved in Scouting since I've been 11. Scoutmaster for 30 years. I teach environmental science. We live in a day where we're not just blessed with the natural resources that God has given us, but He's given us the technology. He's given us the information to be able to do this in a way. And the application of technology when it comes to energy production is amazing. There's not the renaissance in Pennsylvania when it comes to natural gas, when it comes to oil today because of the technology that we have. Because we always knew that since 1859, we knew we had oil underneath our feet, but they can't, we couldn't figure out how to get more of it out after that first wave where it was just vertical wells. And now with today's technology, we can do it as a good steward, and America's better for it. Thank you.
Repeating the question, are there any acts of the EPA, DEP, or DER that you think have gone too far that you would vote to repeal? Why or why not?
So I'd like to touch on the EPA water rules, firstly. When the EPA came out with the recommendation that the water rules be put in place with the waterways, it was actually the exact same rules that had been in place from 72 until 2001, right? Then President Bush, by executive order, pulled them back, right? So if we're talking about the powers of the president and to use his executive orders, that's exactly what President Bush did. He rolled back the power of the EPA in that way. So for any farmer, for any property owner, I'm curious if they were able to farm and make a profit from 1972 until 2001, because that's what we're going back to, right? It's the belief that these rules are draconian and will cause us to have to regulate a mud puddle is not what I find in the rules when I read them, nor is it what I find in the documentation that supports moving back to that space that was in place before President Bush took office and signed the executive order, personally. I have to challenge the premise that the DEP is doing a bang-up job in the state of Pennsylvania. So the DEP, their budgets have been cut so severely that we don't have enough people to inspect the wells that are going in right now. Right now. There is a database that was maintained by the DEP that was meant to show every violation committed by every company across the Commonwealth. A writer for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette decided to do a Freedom of Information Act request to see if the information of the violations agreed with the database. You know what they found? The database showed one violation. The information that we got from the FOIA request showed 14, 16, sometimes 20, and the ones that showed up in the database were the least egregious. They were very minor. Someone spilled something here versus we've accidentally hit an aquifer. So the argument that the EPA can be defunded and we don't need to spend money to make sure that our environment is kept clean and pristine, which is one of the things we're most proud of as a congressional district, because the Commonwealth and the DEP will step in and make sure that our waterways are protected, isn't quite working out the way it was intended. So now, in all fairness, we have a number of really good actors in the drilling industry, right? Baker Hughes just on their own volition said, we'll tell you what we're putting in the wells. We don't have to, we're protected by the Halliburton loophole, but we're going to because as good actors in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, we believe it's the right thing to do. And for that I said, thank you, right? Someone's being forthright and honest about something. We have other companies that if they have an accident, they're immediately calling the DEP and saying, can you help us? How do we mitigate this? How can we do what we should do as good civic citizens in the Commonwealth? But that's not the case across the Commonwealth. And I can tell you in this district, we drive out here, right? People hunt and they fish. And where the wells are going up, deer don't tend to run to. People have to change where they hunt now and get permission to hunt places they haven't hunted in the past 50 years with their families. We have to pay attention to it. Natural gas is a boom, right? It could bring us wonderful jobs and energy independence, but to be clear, we're shipping most of it overseas, right? So we'll get to it on the next question. Sir, thank you. Okay.
Thank you. We're halfway through and catching on.
Okay.
Dave, I need to change the battery.
We're going to take a quick break while she changes the battery in the camera here.
I won't